Hello my lovelies, I hope you're all well. So, we reached 5,000 subscribers and I said I would do a Q&A, so here we are. Let's just dive straight into the questions, shall we? That's what we're here for. Do excuse the hair, I washed it this morning so it's still damp. Okay, question number 1. Would you rather live in a city or on a giant farm? That's a pretty easy one for me. I would definitely rather live on a farm than in the city. I lived in the city. I lived in London for 2.5 years and it was great at the time, but I wouldn't want to live there now. I wouldn't want to live in any big city really. I'm not sure farm life would suit me either, but I like the idea of countryside more than city life. What do I like doing during my downtime besides spending time with my little one? Good question. I am about to join the gym because I really miss going to the gym, so that's something I will be doing in my downtime. Other than that, I don't know. Generally speaking, I don't have a lot of downtime because during the day I'm doing like normal houseworky things and YouTube videos, and then in the evenings generally I work, and I also work quite a lot of weekends, so I don't get a whole lot of downtime. But yeah, I love obviously spending time with my family and friends and going out for coffee and stuff like that, and just having a walk down by the beach is rather nice. But yeah, pretty simple really. I noticed the Harrier print on your wall. Did you serve in a Harrier Squadron for your full career? Do you have a favourite RAF base? Tornado fanboy. Final question, favourite aircraft. Okay, so did I serve in a Harrier Squadron for my full career? No. I did 12 years total. I was on a Harrier Squadron for a portion of that, a short time. I was on one squadron, which was a fighter squadron. But I also worked in air traffic control towers, I worked in flight operations, and I was also on a Typhoon squadron for a time. Favourite RAF base, just for pure nostalgia reasons, it's got to be my first base, which was RAF Wittering, which was a Harrier base. Obviously it's not anymore because they got rid of it. And favourite aircraft? It's the Harrier. What's your opinion on RAF coppers? You mean scuffers? Like anyone, like any job and any place, any role that has a bit of power, you're going to get good people and you're going to get bad people. I don't have any particular positive or negative opinion of RAF coppers. They're just doing their job at the end of the day. Some do get a power trip and go a bit mad, but I think that's true of anyone sometimes that gets a bit of power. During your time in the RAF, what's your biggest regret and proudest moment? Biggest regret is that I didn't push hard enough to get a back seat in the Harrier. One of the pilots did say he would get me a back seat, but I never pushed for it, and I should have, because that would be an amazing memory to have, is to have flown in one of these bad boys. Proudest moment. I don't really know. Probably there was a moment in Afghanistan where I was watching the T-chat, which was part of my role in air traffic control. We had to watch the T-chat because it let us know when the medical aircraft, the Chinooks, were going to have to go. And there was a message that flashed up that a little Afghani girl, she was only a little tot, had been shot in the back by one of the Taliban. The bullet had then travelled up and come out of her neck, and we got the medical Chinook out very quickly, and I believe they were able to save her life, so that is a proud moment. Thoughts about the new Prime Minister and the previous one? God, I don't want to go on a rant, right? Liz Truss was never my first choice anyway. I actually want, out of the ones that were saying they wanted to be Prime Minister, My choice would have been Kemi Badenoch, because she appeared to be the most conservative out of the candidates. But I believe Liz Truss was done a dirty, basically. I think the financial markets manipulated our election process and forced her to step down. Rishi Sunak, as far as I'm concerned, he is not a Prime Minister because he was not voted in. He has just been installed. And from what I can see, he's a WEF stooge. So I have no time for the man. Do you think football is coming home? In short, no. We haven't won the World Cup since 1966. So the odds are not exactly in our favour. What is the meaning of life? To love and to be loved. What's the difference between British and English, and why do some people get angry when I call them British? English means that you were born in England. The Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland consists of England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. Yeah. So if you're British, you're referring to someone from Great Britain, which is those countries. English just means they're born in England. Some people, particularly the Scots and the Welsh and the Northern Irish, don't really like to be called British. You'll find more English people refer to themselves as British. So if you're referring to a Scotsman or a Welshman as British, they might get offended because they consider themselves either Welsh or Scottish. They don't consider themselves British. The union is something of it's a delicate situation, put it that way. What do you do for a living? And do you think a degree, an ordinary job is the way to go, or being an entrepreneur, making a business, make life financially successful? Good question. In terms of what I do for a living, I do this. But the main portion of my income comes from working part-time in a fast food restaurant, which I do to pay for my daughter's school. And then my YouTube money is just my money. But yeah, I'm hoping to be able to replace the money I get from the restaurant with YouTube. We'll see. We're getting there. Do I think a degree, an ordinary job is the way to go, or being an entrepreneur instead? I think it all depends. You know, if you want to have a career in a field that requires a degree, then obviously you're going to have to go down that route. In terms of entrepreneurship, I don't think it's not in everybody to run their own business and to be an entrepreneur, because I think it takes a lot of sacrifice, and it's not for everybody. But if you can make the sacrifice, then I think it's very fulfilling. But it's also there's a lot more pressure because you don't have that guaranteed income. When will you be joining us in the land of freedom and tropics, Florida, both to visit and eventually move? In terms of moving to Florida, I don't know if that would ever be on the cards, to be honest. But I would love to visit. Whenever I have the financial ability, basically. Yeah, it's definitely first on my list of where I want to go if I do an abroad holiday. How would you describe your perfect day, assuming anything is possible, no rules? I'd have to start with a lie-in, which is something I don't get very often, because I'm up early getting my daughter ready for school, and then I crack on with YouTube or housework or whatever. And then at the weekends, I'm mostly working, so I don't even get a lie-in then either. So yeah, I would definitely have a lie-in, maybe go for a nice walk and get a coffee, weather dependent. But if it's my perfect day, then it would be nice and sunny, but not too hot. I don't like it when it's too hot. I'm very fair-skinned, so the sun and me don't always get on. Lunch out in a cozy pub and just spending time with my family. I think that would be my perfect day. If you were Prime Minister of England, or United Kingdom, what changes would you make to fix the country? Now, I'm not going to even attempt to assume that I have the intelligence to be a Prime Minister. So, but there are things that I believe need addressing. So if I did hypothetically get into power and become Prime Minister, the first things I would need to look at is the green agenda and what we can do to get rid of it, because I think it's unnecessary. And it's also crippling the country economically. We would need to start building nuclear power stations ASAP, so that we can be energy sufficient in the future. We would need to change, I would lower taxes immediately across the board. Fuel duty, income tax, all taxes. I would scrap inheritance tax completely, because I think it's disgusting that they tax people's inheritance. Yeah, there's so much that needs addressing. And also the NHS needs an overhaul. And I know people get really precious about the NHS, but it is a money pit, and we need to address where this money is going, because it's not sustainable. The amount of money that gets pulled into the void that is the NHS, it's not sustainable to carry on. So that the infrastructure of the NHS needs looking at. And I'm not saying we need to privatise before you come for me. I'm just saying there is obviously a large proportion of management positions within the NHS that need to be scrapped. It needs to be slimmed down, leaned down, and made fit for purpose, basically. And where I would start making changes with that is the diversity and inclusion managers, who are on about £75,000 a year. They could go straight away. Okay, final question. What do you miss most from time in service? And what do I love to do in my spare time? Well, I've answered the spare time question already, in that I don't have much. What do I miss most from service? There was always a good feeling of community, I would say, depending on where you were, obviously, and who you were with. But there was generally a good feeling of community and helping one another. And it was also good pay. And I do miss the pay. You know, on my last tour, when I was in London for 2.5 years, I even got more money because I was living in London. So I was living in a flat opposite Canary Wharf, which is quite central. And I wasn't paying any more money than I would if I was living in the barrack block, because they can't force you to pay more money because they've sent you to work somewhere, you know. And then I was getting extra money because the cost of living in London is so much higher than the rest of the country. So yeah, I was on a nice packet in London. It was a shame the job was so boring and crap. But anyway, thank you very much for joining me for this Q&A session, and thank you for subscribing. Very much appreciated. I believe last I looked we were on just over 5,600 now. So there's an additional 600 of you that have joined us since we hit the 5. So you are very welcome. I hope you stick around, and I'll see you very soon.